We are live. Welcome to the Sport Sesh Podcast. I'm your host, Mason Shatwell, and my co-host is James Evans. But today we've not got James with us. Usually he'd be with us, as you all know, but he's got a load of work on, so he's chose that over the podcast. But we'll let that slide. Today we've got Manchester top team's head coach, Carl Prince, on. Cheers for joining us, Carl.
Thanks for having us, Mason, mate. Yeah, sorry your co-host couldn't be here, but we can only make people better who can show up, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll start off with, obviously, we've got the whole coronavirus pandemic going on. I know your gym opened earlier in the year before lockdown. How did the lockdown impact the gym?
Well, I guess we'll never know because we opened like a week before coronavirus closed us down, really. So I guess we'll never know. Massively, to be honest, but in a lot of positive ways as well. Obviously, when the lockdown came, we just arrowed in and became more of like a fight team, really, which was always the goal. So it was nice just to focus all the time and energies on not improving membership sales and the commercial side of it, and just improving fighters, individuals, and really also seeing who was 100% invested. Because if you ever really wanted to have a time away from the gym, the coronavirus gave you a million excuses not to train, whereas the people who did train got better. And they showed up every day and then got really better. And then the results shown on the world stage. So I would say it's not been a negative. It's just been a change of course.
Well, as we know, you're the head coach of the gym. What got you started in MMA in the first place to become a coach?
Well, I always graduated to coaching a little bit more than other things, to be honest. I came from coaching before I even competed and trained in fighting. So I was teaching football and other sports like that. So I just, 1 second, let me leave that so it doesn't pop up. So I always knew that I had a better brain than a body. So when I would come into the gym and I'd understand the drills and I'd get good and I'd become a good sparring partner, but I knew I'd never be a world level competitor. So I'm not really comfortable with being average at anything. And I knew that I could be a better coach than I would be a fighter. And then here we are, mate. Yeah, we're a stable of 50 odd guys and then getting to show our skills on the world stage. So it's been a blessing, mate. It's been good.
Well, I know you've got you've got a lot of amazing fighters at the gym, but two stand out in my eyes is Kane Musa and Lerone Murphy. I know you've been in both Abu Dhabi for the Fight Island when Lerone fought, and then Milan when Kane fought.
That's right, mate.
Would you say both Bellator and the UFC have taken the right precautions in terms of the coronavirus?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right person to ask, mate. I have a lax attitude towards everything, really. I just think that this is a virus. We've all had viruses before and have that type of mentality about it. I think in terms of the current climate and the due diligence that they had to put up with, losing fights to coronavirus and losing big fights. I think the UFC lost Burns, didn't they? That was a big fight. And then Bellator going to Italy lost a number of big fights. And also the same, I was with Cage Warriors as well, and we had to quarantine for that. So, yeah, everyone has to take the right reparations to make sure they're going down. Because our sport is a professional sport, to make sure we don't fall into any litigations. It's unavoidable, it's frustrating. But it's actually become a part of fight week and what we do. So we're accustomed to it all now and comfortable with that 2 days away from the outside world just to worry about what they put up your nose and stopping you from fighting. But yeah, all positive, mate. Yeah, great experience with the UFC and Bellator out there.
Well, with you being the coach at Manchester team, how difficult is it to run a gym during this pandemic?
Yeah, I'd say it's impossible to run a gym. Impossible. 6 months we've had without any source of income, really. And then now, what the unknown of 6 months of what's going to happen. So we just really had to change tacks. We've just recently got a new premises and all that. And then within the new premises, we're going to change in who we are as our identity. We're going to become like a school. So becomes for school-aged children up to 18 and all that business. To just basically substantiate the fact that we have a business, because to open a gym and an MMA gym and wrestling when contact's not about to become practical or legal, quite difficult. So we the elite level guys, we train in the morning. We're still allowed to do that by law. Obviously, with Lerone being in the UFC, Kane, etc., being in Bellator, like you alluded to, we're allowed to do that by law. And just now we're allowed to train kids as long as it's not wrestling. So maybe that's something that we'll look to do as well. So, yeah, it's impossible, mate, at the moment. We're just treading water and hopefully getting some fights together. We're putting on an event for all the amateurs to fight on and stuff like that. So if someone has a fight booked, it makes them an elite level competitor. So once that happens, then they can come into the morning classes and train and stuff like that. So that's what kind of the route we're going down.
Well, I know the premises were over in Ashton. Whereabouts is this new premises that you have?
Yeah, Still the same area, mate, just right down the corner. A better location, just outside the tram stop, the train station, backing onto IKEA, 3 times as big. I'm actually sat in the gym now. Current space that we're in and all that. So it's a massive move. It's a massive step up. I'd say it'd be obviously Martin Stapleson's got a huge gym himself. So something along those lines for us. And we're always a bit wanting to become the forefront of what we're doing and adding a strength area, a big area for everybody to train in. And we've had like athletes, international athletes and national athletes come from all over wanting to train. So just want to give them the best platform that they can to grow, mate, yeah.
As I mentioned before, Abu Dhabi at Fight Island with Lerone. Can you explain a bit how Fight Island was? Was it as good as you say?
Hey, it looks better this time. They've got like a basketball court and you're allowed to go out and have contact with everybody else. The hotel was beautiful. You're never going to get to stay at a hotel as good as that. I think the hotel was that good because everyone saw Dana's room, I guess, on that little vlog that he did. But everyone stayed at the same hotel as him. So he got the penthouse and our rooms were not far worse off than that. So it was beautiful, mate. A great week. We had a brilliant week. UFC looked after you insanely well. Like, they give you all your food, not just your food, they structure all the meal plans to make sure that the Rome made weight, and they looked after us. He had a massage every night, and they give him access to like the real cutting edge, highest level of equipment that you could get to. And it was a great experience, mate. Yeah, once in a lifetime, priceless experience for us as well. You know, to walk out and have no crowd, no energy. It was the first time that it happened to us, and we were like, you know, searching for something that wasn't there really almost, but then switched onto the fight, normalized everything that was going, and got a great win. So I think to ask somebody how Abu Dhabi was when the fighter got the biggest win of his life, it was a great time, mate.
Did you manage to go right behind the hotel?
Well, you have I'd say they say it's a safe zone, but your version of safe zone and my safe zone would probably be like a room, whereas there it was like a 12-mile area that you could work in. So myself and Luke Barnett went to play golf. That was as far out from the place we got, mate. Yeah.
How did you assess Lerone's performance on the night over at Fight Island?
Not happy with it, mate, to be honest. Obviously the result was fantastic and all that, and we're very fierce self-critics, and in order to get where we're going to, we have to be. I believe that he's top 10 in the world now, so I don't think that was the top 10 in the world performance. No disrespect to Ricardo Ramos, we know that he was a great opponent, but I just know what he's capable of, and he's only shown a small sample size of what he's capable of in the 2 fights that he's had. And in his game, like, a lot of momentum there. So no, we're unhappy with certain situations. We're unhappy with like being swept off a takedown and all that, and then really didn't get started in the fight as a striker. He's striking his head and shoulders above the levels of Ramos, but Ramos came with different looks, like quite quirky things, and I think getting warmed into the fight and all that. I just want to see him start when the bell starts. I don't believe that he's done that in any of the bouts he's had in the UFC yet. I think he even admitted it in the first minute of the Tukagov fight. He was like trying to get comfortable with his surroundings, where you're not afforded 60 seconds like that. And the same thing with Ramos, I think, trying to get comfortable in there and all that good stuff. Whereas he's a front foot pressure guy. His striking's, like I said, head and shoulders above that, the rights of Ramos. So I give it a 5 out of 10. I give the result a 10 out of 10. But in terms of level performance, it's not the level of performance that we're looking to get to. But obviously, we're really, really delighted with the result. So we can't be sitting there crying our eyes out. But when you give yourself 2 weeks to digest what had happened, I just know what he's capable of. He knows what he's capable of. And that was just a small sample size of what Lerone Murphy is capable of. We're disappointed to not get the opportunity to fight out there on this card in October. So we're just itching and chomping at the bit to go out there and show everybody what he's, again, more and more capable of.
Well, James, my co-host, Bonnie being to ask the question, does Lerone Murphy have what it needs to become a champion in the UFC?
Undoubtedly, mate, yeah. Undoubtedly. Like physically and psychologically, a lot of people physically have great attributes of mega athletes. Obviously, Lerone is one of those people, but more so, it's what's in between your ears that's important. It's not as I say this to the lads all the time, it's not how good you can fight, it's how good you can think, where there's a lot going on. Like finding order out of chaos, and a chaotic order is what he excels at. I believe that, I wholeheartedly believe that he'll 100% be the next champion out of England, mate, yeah.
100%. I've got a few questions from James as well. Following his win over Ramos, what's next for Lerone?
Yeah, we had a few names written down that we'd look to ask for and all that good stuff. We're looking for a stylistically good matchup. We believe we've been asked to fight against some guys that are probably prevailing to the top 15 and all that business. So we're probably looking at something of that. We'll fight anybody. Off the card that we was on Jared Gordon would be a good fight. Alex Caceres would be a good fight. Edson Barboza rolled back the years this week. That would be a great fight. Hakeem Dawodu, that would be a great fight. I've probably got them all listed out. So we want someone who's going to try wrestle with us who we can strike, or we want someone who's going to strike with us who we can outstrike. So it's a killer's division in its featherweight in the UFC. It's like a who's who of who's going to try and murder you. So bring them on, mate. We'll knock them down one by one.
100%. I know you mentioned as well before that you was over in Milan with Bellator and Kane. What was the experience like over at Milan?
Yeah, we had a great week, mate. Yeah, honestly, a really, really, really great week. Just being around Kane, it's good to be around his energy and that. And I had some good friends there too. Like, it's almost, when you go away to these hotels, you know everybody there, and most of them are like your close friends. You end up spending 2 weeks with them in like where you're having breakfast, dinner, and tea and all that, and then training. So you get to know each other really well. Like Andrew Fisher's a good friend of mine, but then on the flip side, Ashley Grimshaw and Nathaniel Wood, they're good friends of ours as well. So it was like going out to breakfast and not knowing who to sit with and all that business. But no, it was great. They put on a great hotel, some just made us really comfortable. And then just to see Kane fight his heart out and then come out of a win like that, just the two of us together as well, it just meant something a little bit different. Like usually when you're in Manchester and there's 100 people there's 100 distractions, but throughout that whole week, it was just me and him in a room. And then in the fight, it was just me and him. And then afterwards, it felt like, it was really, really, really fantastic week, mate. Yeah. And delighted for him to get a win. He really, really needed it. And now he can push off from there.
How would you performance from Kane?
He had one leg. Mason not making excuses and stuff like that. He tore his ankle ligament about 4 weeks out of the fight, to the point where if it would have been my decision, he wouldn't have fought. Plain as simple as that, he wouldn't have fought. I didn't believe that he was in a great position to fight. The last bar he had, he got a leg kick and taken down, and he's a tough man, mate. There's some guys who come into this team are tough, but Kane's a tough guy, mate. Yeah, and he was in pain, so I was like looking to try and save him from it, but I knew how much he wanted to fight, and he ended up fighting. So in terms of his performance, I'd rate it very highly, mate. Yeah, the first punch that the guy landed, the right hand, it like closed Kane's eye. So he fought for 14 minutes with one eye, really, and did his job well. The guy was long ranger, looked massive at the weight, and then Kane got on the inside, roughed him up, obviously caught him with that left hook. Somehow, some judges didn't score that round to him. That's like a robbery to me, but. I thought a really, really professional performance. So I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Kane obviously does good top pressure, gets on top well, contains well in from guard and all that business, does enough striking and that stuff. So it was a Kane 101, but obviously having dropped him in the first round and just the way he set up his entries to takedowns, and in the knowledge that I knew he only had one leg. So like a really, really great performance, like a professional performance, and then hopefully with 2 legs we'll get to see how good he really is. Yeah.
What is there any name?
Yeah, we would have loved the Brazier fight. I don't know if that's gone further away because of what happened at the weekend. Anyone from the UK, really. There's a lot of UK-based lightweights, Alfie Davis, a good friend of ours, Chris Bungard, all these people. So there's a lot of UK-based lightweights that would make sense and all that. But we put Kane with anybody at this stage.
Well, with you being a coach as well, and obviously when you're going into the final rounds with a fighter, if they're losing, by points, if they're losing in the fight, what would you say to them in the corner, like that minute between each round?
It's a great question, Mason. Yeah, and sometimes a minute isn't long enough. Like sometimes the guy's rushing you out of the cage, like corners 10 seconds. Like I've not really got to the point that I was trying to make, but ultimately you've got to understand that we're just an extra set of eyes, and as much as like you want to profess your point over and get your point across. My job is to make my fighter comfortable. So my first job is to get him breathing, get some water inside of him. And then if I can offer like a third person analysis outside of that, then I will. But I'll try not to make it about myself, like jumping up and down saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. Everybody responds differently. I've got certain guys, if I shout at them between the rounds, and they're going to like go into a negative, into a shell, where there's other guys that you need to slap about the head about, say, listen, this is your chance, this is all we speak about. And I think I had Luke Barnett fighting Poland, and he was 2 rounds down, and he had that same conversation with him, just saying, we all know how much you want it. Now's the time to show everybody how much you want it. Now's the time to step on the gas and all that good stuff. But it all depends on the occasion, what the game plan is, who they're fighting, and who the person is I'm speaking to. With Kane, he's quite a gassy individual, we would say. So whatever energy you give to him, he'll give back. So, like, I want to make him feel good as well. Like, in between the second and third rounds, I knew that the fight was getting a bit tight. So, like, saying, just keep doing what you're doing, keep breathing, be strong in there, understand where to get your rest and where to work and not to stop working. And the fight would end well. I was pretty confident that he'd won the first 2 rounds. I knew that he'd won the first round. And then the second round was actually less close than I thought it was watching it back. So I was like thinking, maybe he could score the second round to the other guy and all that. But then when the scorecards read out, I thought it was an obvious 29-28 to Kane. So, yeah, great performance, mate, yeah.
100%. When you guys are teaching at the gym, what would you say is the most important factor of MMA in terms of jiu-jitsu, wrestling, the striking aspect?
We're obviously from a striking inclination, so we'd also always believe that there's no secret that the guy who knocked people out get paid the most money, and ultimately it is a business. No, but none of that I would say is what's important. MMA is what's important. It's how you blend everything together. I've got pro boxers in here. I've got professional Thai boxers in here, and they're no good off the back. They can't be winning punches with knockouts when they lay on the back, not able to get up. So MMA is important. How you can blend the arts, how you can get MMA back to being your strength. So if I'm a striker, I need to make sure that I've got great takedown defense. I can move here to really graduate towards my route to win. So MMA is what's important. There's not one more singular art. The least important art would be jiu-jitsu. That would be the least important art. But everything else is mega important, mate,
yeah. How important would you say the mental aspect of MMA is?
What was that? I'm sorry, mate.
How important would you say the mental aspect of MMA is?
It's more important than boxing, Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA. It's the most important thing. If everyone's seen examples of these physical specimens who run through somebody, get to 10-0 without fighting someone, and then someone actually still wanting to win after the first round, and you'll see them mentally fold. I've been to Russia enough times to know what front runners look like. And all that. You can have all the technique in the world, but if it's not attached to a smart brain and a big heart, there's going to be moments where it gets hard in there. It gets hard in there for John Jones, and he's perhaps the best fighter ever, so it's going to get hard in there for everybody. So, if your skill set's not attached to a working brain and a big heart, you're going to struggle.
Well, I know you in your career as a coach, who would you say has been the best fighter you've taught so far or are teaching currently?
Come on, mate, you can't say that to me, mate, yeah. Well, again, the best in what? The best at fighting, the best at bringing out the best in me. In terms of a question, I'll answer it multifaceted. I like people who ask questions, to be honest. I believe that they're most interested in understanding how they're going to get better. And I don't mean just asking questions to tell you what they know. Some people will say, here, coach, show me this position. And then you show them in a maneuver, they go, yeah, but what I would do here is this. So he's just called me over to tell me that he knows something else. Whereas like a simple question that want to add layers of understanding, because we don't really teach techniques, we teach concepts. Because what you got to understand is you got to get the biggest umbrella you can get, and that'll be a concept. And you take that concept and try to carry it across as a bigger cross section of fighting as you can, and all that business. So the best fighters are the ones who ask the most questions, the one who stay at the end, and the best fighters are the guys who show up every day. Every day, because it's not about who's best, it's about who's most consistent, and usually the people that are best and most consistent will come to the fore. In terms of talent, you have to look at the run, mate. Yeah, it's physically a crazy athletic specimen. We've got another guy here, a heavyweight called Abram Babley, again, like just an unbelievable athlete. And then I'd even go so far as say is like Bella Mir is like a woman athlete that I've worked with. Like she just she transcends being what a female athlete. She almost has the same mental attitude as a male athlete and almost the same physical acumen. So just very blessed, mate, to have worked with like a lot of good fighters that I wouldn't really want to point fingers, because people will watch this and get upset with me for not mentioning them too, mate.
Would you say you find his opponent in depth, or are you quite laid back in that sense?
Yeah, I'm quite laid back in that sense, mate. Yeah. I believe that fighting's about you, and also what happens if your fighter changes, then everyone gets sucked into a game plan. Or I've practiced 8 weeks on this game plan, I'm trying to fight a southpaw, then he kind of pulls out a week before. I'm more interested in making your game more rounded, making the holes in your game smaller. Like really, when I'm watching fight footage, I'll watch the other guy I'll watch his best fight, his worst fight, and his most recent fight. I'll just watch it once. I'll be able to gather patterns off that and stuff, and we'll understand what his intentions are. And then I'll watch my fighter maybe regularly, religiously, because I want to see if they're making set patterns, if they're making mistakes, because that's what the other team are watching for. It's not my job to make my guy beat another guy. It's my job to make my guy better. So my job in to get somebody better is to dissect their performance and how the other guy's going to beat them. I'll just try and watch it from the eye of somebody else to say, okay, I'm fighting Lewis McGrillen, for example. How would I beat him? That's all I'm trying to do, rather than, and obviously I've got to pay attention. Some guys are proficient in one area. Like if I was fighting Paul Craig, I'd obviously look at my triangle defense and all that business. But like, no one's really a specialist now. Everyone's good at MMA. You've got to get better at MMA, haven't you?
Yeah. Out of all the fights you've been to as a coach, what's the best atmosphere you've experienced in an arena?
After being in an arena, the best atmosphere I ever experienced wasn't in an arena. And I've like ran an event that my dream was to do an event at Manchester Evening News Arena, and we did that. But my best ever fight I ever went to was the first bare knuckle show that I went to here. It was in Bolton, and it was in a car park, and they had like a ring, and it was raining, and there was maybe 500 people there, and it was the best atmosphere I've ever been. It was like no one was at school and people were fighting and that type of atmosphere. That's what made me fall in love with fighting. Anyway, the rawness of it, when you go to these arenas, it's like over-sanitized. You might have pockets of people here, pockets of people here. It's like Premier League football. It used to be people standing on the terraces singing, whereas now it's just like, yeah, you know what I mean? I prefer it to be raw, like in a sports centre, somewhere where all fighters are on top of it, like old iconic arenas like the Ritz in Manchester or the Guildhall, or like even Bethnal Green, York Hall, where everyone's in the fight and you can like hear the whole crowd. Whereas you go to these arenas, sometimes it's quiet and you lose a bit of atmosphere. But yeah, definitely a car park in Bolton with someone fighting bare knuckle. That was the best show I ever went to, mate.
Well, as you mentioned, running an MMA.
What was that question? Sorry, mate, about running MMA.
As you mentioned that you've run MMA events before, what actually goes into running one of these events?
A lot of stress, a lot of questioning your sanity, a lot of questioning why you're even starting to do this in the first place, and usually a bit of money losing at the end. What goes into it, more than you would ever imagine, to be honest. It's crazy, like getting the operation side of it, the promotion side of it, logistics, getting everybody involved, matching fights, which is an unenviable task, even an amateur. You're probably messaging this guy to message this guy, then they want to argue about the weight, then they don't want that guy anymore, then they want somebody else, and it's all time consuming. I'd say it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Like, putting together big events especially, yeah.
What's the most important factor as a coach? Obviously, we've spoke about a fighter like MMA as a whole, but what's the most important factor for a coach?
It's not knowledge. It's just care. Like, how much do you care about your athletes? Because if you care, you'll always find a way. But if you know a way, sometimes like your knowledge, like saying it's this way, is a bit short-sighted. Whereas, yeah, it might be this way for Mason Shatwell, but for me, that might not be my way. I think it's about caring, and also caring about how people learn, because everyone learns differently. Some people learn, I'll write it down on a piece of paper, they'll be able to recite it and not be able to get it wrong. And then some people need to see it, some people need to show it. And like I said, I think it's just after the session's finished, is your job as a coach done? Or has it just started and in different ways? So no, I really care about my guys. I got an affinity with them. Like they're my friends, they're my family almost. So I just think that's a massive part of it, because like nothing's too much. Whereas sometimes, like you see these coaches, I'm new to coaching comparatively to other guys who've been around the game for a little while, and they get a little bit bitter about it. Like the game owes them something. And I'm not entitled at all. I feel like I'm blessed to be in the position that I'm in. And every day that I show up, give it 100%. So I'll never be entitled. I promise myself every day to never think that I'm owed anything. I'm not owed anything. I'll pay my dues every day like I did in training, show up and give 100% every day. And then at the end of it, good results will come because I care. I care about Lerone Murphy. I care that he's all right after he leaves the gym, that he's got things that he needs, that he's got food on the table, that his son's got food on the table. You know what I mean? That's what being a coach is about. I wish it was a 2-hour-a-day job, but it's 24/7, mate.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few more questions. What motivates you every day getting into the gym?
I have a fire, mate. Yeah, that just burns inside me. I wish it didn't. I think I'm obsessed, to be honest. Like I go home, I think about the gym. I wake up, I think about the gym. I hope my girlfriend's not talking, but when she's talking to me, I'm thinking about the gym. And I'm just thinking about how I can make the gym better, how I can make it a place of work for people to to improve themselves and ultimately improve myself. I don't have a goal to be the best coach in the world. I think that's like quite an egotistical thing, but I have a goal that all these guys that get into the gym become the best that they can be. So what drives me is I know that if I'm not giving my best, then they're not getting better and all that. And if I'm not pulling the ship, then sometimes the ship will sink. So I just, what motivates me is every day I don't need to be motivated. I'm obsessed by just results and getting this thing better, mate. Yeah.
We spoke about Kane and Lerone being obviously, we know some of the top stars out of Manchester, top team at the moment. But who would you say is the best up-and-coming young fighter you've got at the gym?
Oh, wow, mate. We've got a number, to be honest with you. Obviously, you've heard of Mohamed Makayev. He comes into the gym. He's obviously a great emerging fighter. But on the back of that, I have like a number of other Dagestani fighters that are coming through our ranks that are of equal or of a similar ceiling. That I've got a guy called Ibrahim Ibrahimov. He's 5-0. He's only 16 years old, but he's a phenom, mate. He's unbelievable. His ceiling is non-existent. He could be anything he wants in this sport. Obviously, Lewis McGrillen, he's my first ever student, really. And he's the first guy that I taught from never having fought to being where he's at now on the verge of turning pro, and his ceiling's high. And just recently, we've been fortunate enough that Dakota Decheva has been coming into the gym. And her level is insane. Her striking is obviously immense. I'm really surprised about her grappling. The work that Aspire and Phil Turner have done with her is really big. And then I've got loads, mate. Yeah, I've got like between the age of 15 and 18, I think I've got 25 kids, and they're all going to be really, really good. We've got another girl called Izzy McGoffey. She's 15, but she's going to be fantastic. And then I've not even mentioned Bella May. She's 17 years old, and she's about to have a pro debut this weekend, actually. And she's insanely good, mate. Yeah. The level of people between 14 and 17 is better than the level of people like 10 years ago in the UFC.
100%.
It's insane, mate.
What makes your gym, Manchester Top Team, different to any other gym in the country?
Just the community side of it, the fact that we do care. We have 3 coaches on the mat every morning. So we have a busy mat. Like this morning, we had about 30 guys in, but we had 3 coaches. So, what we just want to make sure that nothing gets missed. I said we're obsessed, but we're obsessed in closing gaps. We're a striking gym. We're very understanding of that. Our jiu-jitsu is what we lack at the most, so we've got to close that gap a little bit. What sets us apart is we're asking people every day how they're feeling, bringing them in for one-to-one chats about not just training stuff outside the gym, how we can help them out. We're giving people jobs inside the gym. We're just creating a community that's a one-stop shop. And now when we move to the new gym, from the age of 12 to 21, we can put you in full-time education. So not just education within training, but education within your life and your skills outside of the gym. So what separates us is we're more than a gym. We're actually a community, and everyone now is really fighting each other's fights. Like when one of the guys win, the whole team wins, and all that. And I will say there are a couple of gyms that are like that in the area, but not many. There's a lot where it's hierarchy, maybe cliques, and we've just eradicated all that. There's no hierarchy on the mat. And even though I'm like the head coach per se, I can get the piss taken out of me as much as everybody else can, and that's where I want it to stay. Like,
yeah. Just a few more. What one piece of advice be that you'd give to a young athlete starting off in MMA?
And just keep showing up. Make sure you're at a place where people care about your learning and all that. And also, if you have an idea of how you can get better, usually it's a good idea. So stay true to your gut. Obviously, you want to take in outside factors. If your idea is crazy and there's 10 people that you've said, listen, I see myself as this fighter and I'm going to be like this, and everyone's going, listen, mate, you're never going to be that. Let's make sure you can engineer yourself to who you are. And all that. But like, if you have a version of who you are in your head, develop that. Don't let anybody tell you no. Nothing is impossible. And if you have a skill set that you want to work around, even if it doesn't really factor into your game, develop your game till it goes back to it. But most important thing is this. It ain't easy. You have to be consistent. You have to show up every day and pay your dues. And the people that pay the dues and show up every day, they get the results. There's no secret to getting better. There's no like magic pill that you can take. So just one foot in front of the other. Make sure your training is all structured, and you've got a structured way to learning. You're going away, writing things down, and you're as passionate as you are about your own learning as you are thinking that your teacher's right as well.
Well, just one or two more now. I know obviously you're going to be passionate about MMA. Is there a fighter that's inspired you at all?
Aaron Wilkinson was probably my biggest inspiration, to be honest, and it comes from a strange place because he's like my best mate. But no, he and I had a shared limited athletic acumen. We were never athletically gifted, but I'd make excuses why I didn't get to the top level, and he got to the top level. But he got to the top level by virtue of what I just spoke about. He showed up every day. He was obsessed by it. He'd go home, think about how he could get better, and every session that he could show up to, he'd show up to. And by virtue of that, he got to fight in the UFC, Bellator, Cage Warriors, BAMMA, and all the biggest promotions in the world. So that would be my inspiration. There's some people that walk into the gym. It doesn't matter what gym they would go to. They're born to do it. They don't even really have to pay the dues. They're just going to get there. Whereas to see somebody who really grafted at it and obsessed by it and get to the pinnacle of the sport, that's an inspiration to me.
Well, I've covered everything that I had down today, so I just wanted to say cheers for joining us, Carl. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Nice one, Mason. All the best to you, mate. Take it easy, my friend.
Thanks, mate. You too. See you later.
Bye, mate.